Good evening. We'll call the regular City Commission meeting of Winter Haven, Monday, March 9th, 2026 to order. City Clerk, can we get a roll call, please?
Commissioner Davis?
Here.
Commissioner Dollison?
Here.
Commissioner Birdsong?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Mercer?
Here.
And Mayor Yates.
Here. Thank you. Okay, we'll have an invocation led by Pastor Mark Hodges this evening. We'll also have the Pledge of Allegiance led by Vanessa Castillo, City Clerk. And then, but wanted to do things a little bit different this evening. So the country has recently lost several service members. The city has lost our hometown hero, Captain Cody Kirk. We've got active duty personnel all over the world fighting to make the world a safer place. Locally, we've lost Reverend Deldrick Leonard, who was a member of our Florence Villa CRA committee. And Mayor Ellie Threkel has passed away as well. So I wanted to just take a moment and have a moment of silence for all of these individuals. And then we'll let Pastor Hodges. Please join me in a moment of silence.
Heavenly Father, we praise you for the wonderful God that you are. All the blessings flow from you. God, our hearts are sad today to hear of these that have passed, especially these military. Lord, we hear this news. Our hearts are sad of especially the local hero here, our Captain Cody Cork. God, I pray you just put your special hand upon his family and help them, Lord, in their time of grieving. Also, this former mayor, I pray that you would be with her family. This pastor that has gone on to be with you, I pray that you'd be with his family also. And God, we ask that you would give our president, our leaders, our national leaders wisdom during this difficult time in our country, conflict with Iran. And God, I pray that you would protect our military while they are there in harm's way, and even as the mayor mentioned, of those in our own community that are there, and pray that you would encourage their families while they're gone. I pray you'd protect those that are innocent in all of this and help them during this time. We pray, Lord, that this conflict could soon be past and that all of our military could be coming home. And God, I pray that you be with our own local first responders. They too are in harm's way here many times, and I pray that you'd protect them and help them day by day in what they have to deal with and see, and pray that you would encourage them. God, I pray that you be with our beautiful city of Winter Haven, that we're so grateful, Lord, to live in such a beautiful, wonderful place. And we are so grateful, Lord, for this opportunity. And we are thankful for our leadership here, our city commissioners, and all those that are here today that work with them in order to make Winter Haven a lovely place to live. I pray that you would give them wisdom and direction. Help them, Lord, day by day. Protect their families, give them good health. And as we soon approach Easter, God, we pray greatest of all, Lord, we want to thank you for sending your Son, Jesus Christ, to die for us that we can have eternal life. He took our place. Lord, we're sinful creatures, and he took our place that we could have eternal life if we'd only put our faith and trust in him. And we're grateful for that. We will be eternally grateful. So now, God, we ask your blessings upon this meeting, that it would be civil and very productive. And we'll give you all the honor and praise, for we ask it in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
Evening, Honorable Mayor and Commissioners. We have three presentations in the form of proclamations this evening that we will read for you, and then we have a presentation from staff on the Spring Lake Apartments following that. Our first presentation this evening is a proclamation recognizing Irish American Heritage Month. I'd invite to the podium Greg Sean Canning, the National Deputy Secretary and Florida State Secretary of the Ancient Order of Hibernians. Our proclamation reads as follows. Whereas by 1776, nearly 300,000 Irish nationals had emigrated to the American colonies and played a crucial role in America's war for independence. 5 signers of the Declaration of Independence were of Irish descent, and 3 signers were Irish-born. Irish Americans helped to fashion a system of government for our young nation. In fact, 22 presidents have proudly proclaimed their Irish American heritage. Whereas in 1792, Irish-born James Hoban provided the architectural plans for the White House and served as one of the supervising architects for the construction of the Capitol. And whereas Irish-born Commodore John Barry was recognized by the United States Congress in September of 2002 as the first flag officer of the United States Navy. Commodore John Barry fought the last sea battle of the American Revolution off the coast of Florida. And whereas in 1813, Captain Oliver Perry, an Irish American, achieved a major naval victory in the Battle of Lake Erie. And whereas in 1942, the 5 Sullivan brothers made the ultimate sacrifice for democracy and freedom during the naval battle of Guadalcanal, and later had the destroyer USS Sullivan commissioned in their memory. And whereas the Irish first came to Spanish La Florida in the 1500s, first as missionaries and mercenary soldiers, and then as planters, traders, businessmen, doctors, and administrators. 3 of the Spanish governors of La Florida were actually Irish military officers. And whereas Father Richard Arthur, an Irish-born priest from Limerick, who was appointed parish priest for St. Augustine in 1597, an ecclesiastical judge of La Florida, established the first public school in America and opened it to both boys and girls of all races. And whereas President Andrew Jackson, whose family came from County Antrim, served as Florida's military governor following its acquisition by the United States. And whereas Irish Americans, since America's inception, have provided and continue to provide leadership and service to this nation's political, business, and religious establishments. Therefore, it is fitting and proper to celebrate the rich cultural heritage and the many valuable contributions of Irish Americans. Now, therefore, William Brian Yates, Mayor of the City of Winter Haven, Florida, does hereby recognize March 2026 as Irish American Heritage Month in the City of Winter Haven, Florida. In witness whereof, he is hereunto set his hand and caused the seal of the City of Winter Haven, Florida, to be affixed this 9th day of March 2026. Signed, William Brian Yates, Mayor. Attest, Vanessa Castillo, City Clerk.
Mayor Yates, City Commissioners, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Once again, on behalf of the Irish American community in Florida and the Ancient Order of Hibernians, oldest and largest Irish organization in the world, tracing our origins back to the 1500s as the Ribbon Societies, I would like to express my gratitude for your kind consideration in designating March as Irish American Heritage Month. St. Patrick's Day, March 17th, is without question the biggest celebration of a national day across the globe. throughout American and Canadian cities, in Ireland, the UK, Germany, Norway, Denmark, Australia, New Zealand, South Korea, Japan, Nigeria, Grenada, and even on the Caribbean island of Montserrat, the only other country in the world to declare St. Patrick's Day a national holiday. People will be celebrating this occasion and proclaiming themselves Irish for the day. This proclamation coincides with festivities that are currently underway as Irish Americans once again gather to celebrate their heritage throughout the state of Florida. During the month of March, Irish Floridians proudly reflect on the legacy of their Irish forebearers who have contributed significantly in the areas of education, business, sports, literature, science, engineering, medicine, law enforcement, and the arts. These are just some of the contributions that have been made not only by the Irish, but by so many ethnic and racial groups who came to these United States from the four corners of the world and who have contributed significantly in developing this great country as ours. As the current National AOH Deputy Secretary, the Florida State Secretary, past National Director for the Southern States, and past Florida State President of the Ancient Order of Hibernians, I would like to acknowledge the esteemed honor the Mayor and City Commissioners have bestowed upon all Irish Americans living within this community and the great state of Florida. Goramahagut August Lapodric Fay Honagwich. Thank you and have a blessed St. Patrick's Day. And before I relinquish the mic, can I share two facts with you? One, I found out last night. I have received an invitation from the Irish Consulate General in Miami to please attend a special event yesterday in St. Augustine. That was a trip, I'll tell you that much. I almost got lost. But other than that, they had a special exhibit that they opened last night, and there was a ceremony for it called La Padric, and it's in the visitor center, and it's going to be circulating through the country. But an interesting fact, I wish I can share this with the people of Boston who claim to have the first and oldest St. Patrick's Day parade in what is now the United States. Well, I hate to tell them it's not true. The first St. Patrick's parade or celebration occurred in the streets of St. Augustine in the 1500s. As a matter of fact, St. Patrick was declared the protector of the fields and later the protector of St. Augustine itself. So here's another first Florida can claim. And one last thing, I've been asked in the last few days, because I'm all over the state of Florida, and I've been asked this question: is Patrick really his name? Well, a little bit yes, and a little bit no. His name actually is Maewyn Succat. And in South Carolina, we actually have a division named after him. He was born on the island of Britain, and his father was a Roman official, so he belonged to the bit of nobility, but his mother was Welsh, and Maewyn Succat is actually a Welsh name. And what happened after he escaped as a slave from Ireland, he eventually became a priest, and he wanted to bring Christianity to Ireland, but they said the man just didn't have the intelligence and the training for it. But when the previous bishop failed, they decided to give him a chance. So when the Pope of Rome elevated him to the status of bishop and sent him to Ireland, he was given the name Patricius, hence the name St. Patrick. So maybe that'll answer a bit of it, but his actual name was Maewyn Succat. Anyway, Guramahugat, thank you so much. Greatly appreciate it.
Right here. 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and City Commissioners. Our next proclamation is for the Red Cross, and I think I saw Tina Sweet in the back. Whereas in March, we celebrate American Red Cross Month by honoring our neighbors who make its humanitarian mission possible in the city of Winter Haven. Every day, their acts of kindness change lives, bringing relief, comfort, and hope when help can't wait. The compassionate spirit runs deep in our community, just as it has for 145 years through the American Red Cross. And whereas in 2025, Red Cross volunteers responded to 20 fires in the city of Winter Haven. They opened 25 cases as a result of these fires and assisted 83 individuals with comfort kits, referrals to other agencies, mental health and health services, and over $18,000 in cash assistance. In addition, 142 Polk County volunteers taught 1,801 resident preparedness classes and provided 194 veterans with critical emergency services. And whereas today, those who serve with the Mid-Florida chapter light the way during emergencies, whether it's delivering shelter, food, and comfort after disasters, providing a safe, life-saving blood supply for patients facing conditions like cancer treatments, childbirth complications, and traumatic injuries, assisting military members, veterans, and their families with 24/7 global support, or empowering individuals with skills like first aid and cardiopulmonary resuscitation that save lives. And whereas these collective efforts are a powerful reminder that the strength of our community lies in our shared commitment to one another. As we mark Red Cross Month, let's celebrate our local heroes and resolve to continue lifting each other up so no one faces an emergency alone. Now, therefore, William Bryan Yates, Mayor of the City of Winter Haven, Florida, does hereby proclaim March 2026 as Red Cross Month in the City of Winter Haven and encourage all citizens to reach out and support its humanitarian mission. In witness whereof, he is hereunto set his hand and caused the seal of the City of Winter Haven, Florida, to be affixed this 9th day of March, 2026. Signed, William Bryan Yates, Mayor. Attest, Vanessa Castillo, City Clerk.
Thank you so much for reading all of that, MJ. And thank you, Mayor Yates and City Council, staff, community, for supporting the American Red Cross here in Polk County. The stats that MJ read for you today, those are all stats just for Winter Haven. We had 130 fires in Polk County total, so 20 of those were here in Winter Haven. And our volunteers, if we didn't have them, there's absolutely no way we could do this work. They're on call 24/7, and they're the heartbeat of what we do. But I also wanted to mention tonight that just so that you all are aware that we will be walking alongside the family of Captain Cork during this hard time. We're able to offer some support to them. We will be canteening at the funeral, and we'll be participating in the motorcade, and we will be feeding the soldiers and the sheriff's officers that will be standing guard at the funeral home during the time between when he gets back here to Polk County and when he's buried. So we'll be making sure that they have everything that they need. The wallets have been open for that family, and we're going to make sure that they're taken care of. So I just wanted you all to know that as well. And I wanted to introduce Kim Burr, and you all know Drew here, but they're 2 of my 13 board members that support us here in Polk County, and we appreciate Drew being able to support us in that way, and I know that he works closely with our disaster team. So thank you so much for doing this for us this month, and we appreciate it. 3 more things, just because one, March 19th, we're having the museum opening at the office, and would love for all of you to attend if you can. Our curator is amazing, and there's some really cool stuff in the museum. If you can't come that night but you'd like to come, just let me know. If you haven't had a red velvet cupcake from Gourmet Goodies yet, they are sponsoring us this month, and some of those proceeds come back to us, so go try one of their cupcakes. And also at Richards, they have a Red Cross refresher. So please enjoy those and know that those community businesses are supporting us this month. So thank you.
Mayor and Commissioners, our final proclamation this evening is for Donate Life Month, and I'll invite Sherry Day, Public Affairs Manager of LifeLink Foundation, Inc., to the podium as I read the proclamation. Whereas one of the most meaningful gifts that a human being can bestow upon another is the gift of life, and whereas over 105,000 men, women, and children are currently on the national waiting list for organ transplantation, of which over 6,000 reside in Florida. And whereas in 2025, a historic 49,065 organ transplants occurred in the United States, thanks to the generosity of 23,787 deceased and living donors. And whereas LifeLink of Florida honored more donors than ever before, serving 360 organ donors who provided 995 life-saving transplants to patients in need. And whereas more than 2.5 million people throughout the country, including Florida, benefit annually from tissue transplantation thanks to thousands of tissue donors. And whereas the need for organ, eye, and tissue donation remains critical as a new patient is added to the national waiting list for an organ transplant every 8 minutes, and each day roughly 13 people die due to the lack of available organs. And whereas more than 10 million Floridians have registered their decision to give the gift of life through organ and tissue donation at www.donatelifeflorida.org or on their driver's licenses. And whereas LifeLink of Florida is a nonprofit organization dedicated to the recovery of organs and tissue for transplantation therapy in Florida, with a mission to honor donors and save lives through organ and tissue donation. Now, therefore, William Bryan Yates, Mayor of the City of Winter Haven, Florida, does hereby proclaim April 2026 as Donate Life Month in the City of Winter Haven and encourages all citizens to consider leaving an infinite legacy through organ donation and sign up at www.mystorycontinues.com or when renewing their driver's license or state identification card. In witness whereof, he is hereunto set his hand and caused the seal of the City of Winter Haven, Florida to be affixed this 9th day of March, 2026. Signed, William Bryan Yates, Mayor. Attest, Vanessa Castillo, City Clerk. Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, distinguished council members, and all who are in attendance. I'm Sherry Day, Public Affairs Manager for LifeLink Foundation. As you heard, April is National Donate Life Month. It's a time to raise awareness about the critical need for organ and tissue donation. Please join us in celebrating this gift of life this April by registering as an organ and tissue donor at mystorycontinues.com, or say yes to donation when you renew your driver's license. One donor can save and heal many lives. Just one donor can save 8 lives and heal the lives of dozens more, up to 75, through tissue donation. Nearly 7,000 Floridians are waiting for a life-saving organ. Nearly 7,000 Floridians are waiting for a life-saving organ, and more than 108,000 people around the country are waiting as well. There's no age limit to organ donation. Our oldest donor just sort of clocked in about 2 weeks ago at 100 years old, and he donated his liver, which is the only organ that can regenerate itself, and it's the least resistant to aging. So don't rule yourselves out. Please consider donating. Thank you so much for recognizing Donate Life Month, and thank you all for considering donation.
Our last presentation this evening, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners, pertains to the Spring Lake apartment development that was discussed at your last city commission meeting. At that time, Mayor Yates, you had requested that in response to questions that were posed, that staff come back and provide a presentation on that property and project history, the like. So Eric Labby and members of our staff have prepared that for you. Mr. Labby will present that this evening, and we'll stay and answer questions as you may have. I will note, this also includes, for everyone's benefit, both the commission and those in the audience, somewhat of a primer, a refresh on how land development occurs in the state of Florida, and certainly here in the city of Winter Haven, to outline some of those statutory requirements that guide the process. So, Mr. Labby?
Yes, sir. Mayor, Commissioners, thank you for the opportunity. So as City Manager noted, this is going to start off with a little primer on land development process. This is high level. I have very detailed flow charts that I can make available, but it would be multiple pages, and we'd be here quite a while. So this is high level. Not every property that goes through the development process in the city of Winter Haven has to be annexed, but we start there. If a property is outside of the city limits of Winter Haven, the very first step is to be annexed into the city. 99.9% of all annexations that we do in the city of Winter Haven are voluntary. These are folks that come to us with a petition for annexation. They want to be in the city limits for some reason. Usually it is to receive city water. Staff will review that petition for annexation for consistency with Chapter 171 of Florida statutes. During that process, if we determine that it is consistent with Chapter 171, these are the requirements for adjacency. Must be adjacent to the existing city limits, must not create an enclave pursuant to that annexation, et cetera. If we determine it to be consistent with those statutes, we issue a letter to Polk County indicating our intent to annex that particular piece of property. We then put a display ad in the newspaper. It must run for 2 weeks prior to the second reading of the City Commission. We publish a City Commission agenda, have that first reading, which serves as an additional public notice to that annexation, and then schedule and publish the agenda for the second reading at the City Commission, at which point the City Commission votes to annex or not annex. The next steps, 2 steps, are future land use and zoning. So future land use is related to our comprehensive plan in the city of Winter Haven. This establishes the big picture entitlements with respect to that particular piece of property. We receive an application for a future land use designation. Staff then reviews that application for consistency with our local comprehensive plan and also Chapter 166, which is the growth management chapter of Florida statutes. If we determine that application to be not consistent, we communicate that with the applicant. 99.9% of the time, they withdraw that application at that time and amend their request to something that we determine to be consistent with the comp plan and Florida statutes. If it is consistent, we then run a public notification in preparation of the Planning Commission. That includes an advertisement in the newspaper, mailers to everybody within 500 feet of that particular property, and signs on the property. We then publish the agenda for Planning Commission, hold the Planning Commission meeting. They make a recommendation. If it is large scale, which means it is over 50 acres in size, it gets transmitted to the state. So the first reading in front of the City Commission is that transmittal hearing. It is a public meeting. It is advertised with a display ad in the newspaper. City Commission will hear it, vote to transmit or not transmit. If it is transmitted, Department of Economic Opportunity and other state agencies weigh in, and they provide a letter back to the city, usually within 45 days or so. If there are no objections from the state agencies, it is scheduled for second reading in front of the City Commission. That includes an additional display ad for that. We then move to zoning. This is the more refined entitlement process for what somebody can do on their property. Again, staff reviews it for consistency with the Land Development Code. There is a public notification process Same as the land development. It goes to Planning Commission. They make a recommendation. It is scheduled for first reading in front of you guys. There is an ad in the paper prior to the second reading, and then you hold your second reading public hearing, and the zoning process is adopted or denied at that time. It is important to note that with respect to entitlements and land development, this is where land rights are established with respect to that piece of property. It's demonstrated here by this bundle of sticks. So at this time, you are granted as a landowner a bundle of sticks. That bundle of sticks is what you can and cannot do with your property. Nobody can take away a stick unless they are duly compensated for that stick. Everything from this point forward is an administrative staff level review, to include other agencies, outside agencies that have permitting authority. If somebody tries to take away somebody's stick after this point, that's what in John's world they call a taking, and there's a legal process involved there. So from this point forward.
Aaron, can I interrupt for you
Yes,
for
sir.
1 second?
Yes, sir.
Commissioners, I also want to point out in that zoning process, so you're familiar with all the different zoning categories we have: residential, commercial, institutional, agricultural, etc. Another type of zoning, is a zoning district that is also applied at that point, could be the planned unit development, or PD, PUD, whatever acronym you want to use, which is, it is a zoning district. It is just not a traditional straight zoning. It is a zoning that has been developed in which the developer is looking to do something maybe a little bit different from what is within one of those straight zonings, and therefore there's a discussion process, a negotiation for the most part that goes on between planning staff and the developer. If we can reach agreement on that, then that is the zoning that you see. So if you see something that has a planned unit development or a PUD, PD zoning assigned to it, that is the same as the entitlements that you would get from anything else. Just as Mr. Labby said, once it's applied, it runs with that land. And it's one of those sticks that it doesn't get taken away except by choice of the developer. And that is a whole process that you go through as well, just like a rezoning of a piece of land. There's certain particulars that have to be met in order to do that.
Thank you, and that's pertinent to the piece of property we're going to speak about later, so thank you, sir. So from this point forward, we move to the site plan approval process. Staff will receive a site plan from a landowner / developer wanting to do something with their property. Internally, we have a 15-day review. We'll generate comments. The applicant will resubmit addressing those comments. That process may happen 3 or 4 or 5 times before a site plan is ready to be approved. Outside agency permits are required at this time. So we're talking about any Polk County permits, FDOT, SWIFMUD, NPDES permit, EPA permits are required at this time if applicable to that particular project. And staff will not approve a site plan until all of those outside agency permits are obtained. This is also where we run our concurrency analysis. This is where we determine whether or not there's sufficient infrastructure to service the project. So water, sewer, transportation, and public schools. If all of those boxes are checked, they will receive site plan approval. At this point, they move on to site development. Must have an approved site plan, of course. They schedule a pre-app conference with our staff, a pre-construction conference with our staff. Inspectors are assigned, and they begin the site development. This is all the horizontal infrastructure you see developed on a particular site. So stormwater, grading, utilities, roads, and the like. Not every property goes through a subdivision plat. But if you are dividing property into a plat, this is the process you would go through. Excuse me, I got a little tickle in my throat. We'd receive an application. Staff reviews that application, and a sufficiency letter is issued. It is reviewed for consistency with Chapter 177 of Florida statutes. We have the option to approve it, deny it, or approve it with conditions. Any improvements that are dedicated to the public are accepted upon the approval of that plat. And as you may remember, this is now also a staff level approval per Florida legislature. This used to come back to the City Commission for approval. It does not any longer. They can move on now for building permits. Once the site is developed, they can apply for building permits. Again, staff reviews for consistency with the building code, the fire code, and land development code as applicable. We go through comment generation process. Once all comments are addressed, the building permit can be issued, and then they move on to vertical construction. That is the process by which property in the city of Winter Haven and in the city and in the state of Florida is developed. With respect to construction, again, it's a very similar process. Inspectors are assigned, vertical construction begins, and once all the work is done, they can be issued a CO or a CC, depending on what the building is, and they can now occupy that particular structure. With respect to the Spring Lake Plaza property, a little bit of ownership history. All of the property outlined in orange was formerly owned by Everett and Adelia Adams, who moved to Winter Haven in 1923 and purchased and sold land during the 1920s land boom. Likely this was when this particular piece of property was purchased by those individuals. Their son was W.G. Bill Adams. He famously was given a couple of acres of land and a few hundred trees, thank you, by his father Everett, and turned it into one of the most successful citrus industries in the state of Florida until the canker scare of the 1980s, and then other market forces sort of forced them out. I think by the early 2000s they were done. In 1965, a fee simple deed was given by Everett and Adelia to Landmark Investments Incorporated. Landmark Investments is a family-owned business owned and managed by the relatives of Bill Adams. Landmark held that property. If you see here in the property in red, the property in red is what is currently under construction today with the Spring Lake Apartments. Landmark held that property until 2004. It was then sold to Ridge Capital Fund. In 2007, it was sold to Lake Spring Development Company. In 2011, the bank owned it. This was right after the recession. In 2014, Lake Mirror Trust acquired the property. And in 2002, Scarecrow Acquisition Group purchased the property, and they own it today. Okay, zoning history. Phase 1 of the Spring Lake Shopping Plaza, which is depicted here on the screen, everything above the orange dotted line, was zoned business tourist and began construction under that zoning designation in the early to mid 1980s. Everything south of that orange line, in 1985, the City Commission approved a request to rezone that property south of that orange line from business tourist and R1A single-family low density to planned development. The planned development zoning provided for the area outlined in red to be developed with 120 apartments and 8 single-family residential lots. Everything else remained commercial. In 1989, the City Commission approved a request to amend Ordinance 8529 to revise that ordinance to adopt an overall site plan. The overall site plan was for what is now depicted as Phase 2 there. Phase 2 and 3, and a specific site plan with respect to Phase 2. It also divided Phase 2 into another phase. So you had Phase 2, Phase 3, which were both commercial. It did not change the entitlements for the property outlined in red. That was still entitled. They still had their bundle of sticks for 120 apartments and 8 single-family units. In 2006, the City Commission approved a request to amend Ordinance 8529 and 8904 to provide for up to 180 apartments to be constructed in the red outlined area, eliminating the single family. So the 8 single-family lots were removed, and the apartments increased from 120 to 180. Then finally, in 2000, with the adoption of the Land Development Code, the Business Tourist zoning district was renamed to the C3 Commercial Highway zoning district. So what we have today is what's depicted there as Phase 1 is currently zoned C3, Commercial Highway. Phases 2 and 3 are subject to Ordinance 8904, and the property in yellow is subject to Ordinance 06-121. Both of those ordinances are planned developments or PUDs. Those are the bundle of sticks that are associated with those particular phases of those properties. In 2024, staff received a request to amend PD Ordinance 8904. What the request was to change the area outlined in blue in both of those images there from commercial to 100 units of apartments. Staff reviewed that application and determined it to be compatible with adjacent uses, as we had commercial uses to the east and properties zoned for apartments to the west. Additionally, since it was a PUD, we had the ability to apply conditions associated with that particular ordinance. We proposed to provide conditions in that ordinance that would provide clarity that that property would be subject to all C3 zoning regulations, while we also proposed to prohibit other inappropriate C3 uses like auto sales, repair, nurseries, cemeteries, and the like. We also had recent, at that time, LDC, Land Development Code changes that would subject bars and nightclubs to a special use approval process and revocation provisions in our Land Development Code. By clarifying that that property was now subject to C3 zoning regulations, that approval process, special use approval, which is another public hearing, and the revocation provisions would then apply to that property. Due to those considerations, we recommended approval of that PUD request. The request was heard by the Planning Commission on June 4th, 2024. They voted 7-1 to recommend approval of that PD amendment. The request was withdrawn by the applicant between the first and second reading of the City Commission. So, the bundle of sticks associated with the property in red remained at 180, a maximum of 180 apartment units. They are currently under construction. This is the site plan for the development of that particular piece of property. And to recap, the zoning has been in place since 2006, so approximately 20 years. No additional public meetings would be required in order to develop this particular piece of property. Staff and outside agencies reviewed. This meets the code requirements for Ordinance 06-121, as well as our engineering technical standards. It is 168 market rate units. The maximum building height is 45 feet, 257 parking spaces. All outside agency permits were issued. There is a private easement recorded for access to Spring Lake Plaza Drive. The concurrency analysis was completed. There is sufficient water, wastewater, transportation, and public schools available to service this project. We did require, as it was a requirement of Ordinance 06-121, a traffic analysis, TIA. In conjunction with this project, they submitted that transportation analysis, demonstrated there is sufficient capacity on US 17, and the impacts to the intersection at Havendale were considered de minimis at less than 1% of the total traffic going into that intersection. The site plan was approved in September of 2025. All site plans are valid for 18 months, and they commenced construction within that time frame. With respect to code compliance, there is one active code compliance case on the Scarecrow Acquisitions LLC property outlined in red. That is for junk and debris on the property. Development of the property will cure this violation. There are 4 active cases that exist on Landmark Investments, Inc. property. You can see them outlined on the screen in front of you. Everything from signs and sign maintenance to some junk trash and debris, parking lot maintenance, exterior general maintenance, fence maintenance, etc. There are two closed cases. They are both related to Floridino's, which has been demolished. So in summary, private property entitlements that are land use and zoning, they're established at land use and zoning, are established through a public process that are dictated by Florida statutes and local code. This includes public notification, public hearings, and opportunity for public comment. Established entitlements run with the land, not the property owner. Irregardless of how many times a property is purchased and sold, those entitlements run with the land. Land development orders and construction permits are issued administratively. This is per Florida statutes. Basically, it is does it meet the code or does it not meet the code? Yes or no. There are no time limits for property entitlements, and they cannot be arbitrarily removed or altered. Active code compliance cases do not prohibit the issuance of a land development order or a permit. In fact, often a land development order or permit is necessary to correct a code violation. If an applicant demonstrates compliance with all applicable codes, concurrency requirements, and receives all applicable permits, staff is obligated to approve the land development order or construction permit. And I'm happy to stand for any questions, comments you may have.
Thank you. Commission, any questions or comments on the presentation? Very thorough. Thank you, Eric.
Yes. Commissioners, I do want to make one comment going back to one of the first slides that Mr. Labby had shown. You know, the commission's involvement in the development process is at the point of annexation, if such is needed, at the point of land use, when it is assigned, and you all have seen where we have annexed lands adjacent to city limits, and in those fact sheets that assign land use, there's usually a comment that says this property was annexed at this date. It was this land use under the county, and now needs to be assigned a land use under the city's comprehensive plan. And then typically we will have a companion ordinance with that pertains to the zoning. Once the zoning and the land use have been assigned, it used to be, as Mr. Labby said, it used to be if the land was going to be platted, meaning divided up into 3 or more individual lots, that came back to the city commission. The state legislature took that authority away a year ago, and we just had to make code revisions to make that an administrative process, and that was part of the development-friendly laws that have come about in recent years. So really, once zoning is applied, that's the last step in this, the commission's involvement in a project, for the most part, is done, unless there is a request from the developer to change that, either the land use or the zoning for whatever reason, to do something different with it. It's not unusual to see a property come in maybe it was ag in the county and they want to keep it ag, but then 10, 15 years later it comes back to us and they want to change it to something else. You've seen that with former citrus groves and pasture lands that have been handed down generation to generation, and now they want to do something different with it. But the owner of that land is who calls the shot on that. The city does not have the authority to go out and just arbitrarily change a zoning or remove a PUD or whatever the case may be. That has to come from the developer. There was a question that came up about the city removing PUDs. And Eric, I'm going to ask you to weigh in on this with me, but what had happened with some of our PUDs, we had PUDs that were assigned by or authorized by prior commissions. Somebody wanted to do something that was slightly different from a straight zoning. They went and they developed that land. The project was completed, all lots developed, nothing more to be done there. And when we reviewed that, we found that the development pattern was consistent with what the actual straight zoning on that land is. And from an administrative standpoint, change that to post-development, it is this zoning that is applied there. The setbacks, the driveway widths, or the roadway right-of-way widths, everything about that, but it's post-development. It's not before it's developed. And that was because everything they did mirrored to a T what was in the straight zoning. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Thank you.
Yeah, and just wanted to add that that too also was a public process with public meetings, public notification, and landowners were aware of those proceedings.
Thank you. Okay, we've got no developments of note. We do have 3 sets of minutes for approval.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
make a motion to approve the 3 sets of minutes for February 9th, of 2026 regular meeting, February 18th, 2026, the City Commission Agenda Review Session minutes, and February the 23rd, 2026, a regular City Commission meeting.
Thank you. Commission, any discussion on any of these minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Okay, now we've got comments from the audience. We do have 3 that have signed up, so I'm going to call on those 3 first. Then we'll do a call for anyone who has not signed up. All 3 of these wish to speak on what was just presented, the Spring Lake Apartments, item 5D. I will just remind the speakers you can ask any questions, you can make any comments you'd like. You've got 5 minutes. It's not an opportunity for us to give answers. Where possible, we may try to provide clarification. But a member of staff will reach out to you if you have specific questions. They'll get your information, and we'll certainly follow back up with you on those answers. I just want to set the expectations going into this portion of the meeting. So with that, Maureen English, you have 5 minutes if you'll state your name and address for the record.
Hi, my name is Maureen English. I'm also called Muffy English by a lot of people. I live in the 1700th block on 6th Street Northwest. It's also called Highway 17. I've spoken to you in the past about proposed of these 168 apartments adjacent to our 80-unit condo building. I spoke last time about the serious overcrowding of the zoned schools. Today, I'd like to speak seriously, and I'd like you to listen to me seriously about the hazard traffic that we already have before any more of these proposed apartments are built. They would cause uncontrollable accidents. I live in an over 55 condo community, not an assisted living facility. That being said, there are many older residents that live there, and several have already stopped driving for many different reasons. Many chose to live in our complex specifically because we live within walking distance of nearby businesses such as a movie theater, grocery stores, dental offices, and other services. Unfortunately, traffic on 6th Street Northwest or Highway 17 has become so dangerous that many of us no longer feel safe to cross 6th Street Northwest at all. It's crossing, we're taking our life in our hands to be on that street. Because of this, even though so many businesses are directly across the street from us, we have been forced to rely on ride-sharing services such as Lyft or Uber. Due to the heavy traffic, the Ubers and Lyfts can barely even get to our gate now to get in and pick us up. So it takes us an hour and 15 minutes to an hour and a half to schedule our ride to ensure we arrive on time for any basic appointments that we may have, such as doctor appointments at Bond Clinic, or scheduled appointments with an accountant or an attorney, even to have lunch with our friends. What should be a simple trip has turned out to be costly and very difficult. A ride to go to the movie theater across the street costs us $8 to $10 to get there, the price of the movie ticket, and then $8 to $10 to get back home. If we need to get to Publix, it's $12 to $13 to get there, plus the cost of the groceries, then $12 to $13 to get back home. If we want to go to church, say St. Matthew's, that is $16 one way there and back home. If we want to go to St. Joseph's Catholic Church or First Presbyterian, that's $12 to $13 there and $12 to $13 to get back home. Mass public transit could normally be a reasonable option, but the bus stop is across 6th Street, Highway 17, and it's up 2 blocks that we'd have to walk to, and we have to cross the street, and it only goes by every hour and a half. We hear and see ambulances on 6th Street Northwest, Highway 17, all day long and all night long, 24/7, due to the traffic accidents that are already happening. And you're thinking of allowing a proposed apartment complex of 168 more complex to add to this very serious traffic issue. This proposal is extremely concerning to many people. Adding developments without addressing already serious traffic conditions are just horrible on your judgment. I respectfully request that the city consider the safety of the already 80 units that we already have there because of the traffic. I'm sure your own parents, if they were there, you would not be okaying this. You would be looking out for your parents. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next up, we have Scott Klein. Mr. Klein, if you'll state your name and address for the record, you have 5 minutes.
Scott Klein, 2720 Sunset Drive, Northwest. Pardon my ignorance on the project in general. It sounds like this has been going on for a while. I was just kind of curious. It said something about market rate rents. I guess I'm curious about what the project actually is. Eric, maybe?
Sure. So by saying market rate, what we're saying is it's not subsidized housing, it's not affordable housing, it's market rate, whatever the
Okay.
developer
That
can
makes
get
sense.
for the unit.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's really my question. And, the fact that it's, going there, it looks like it's already kind of been decided. drove down there on the way here, and it's, they're burning and mowing it over, so it looks like it's on with it. So anyway, thank you.
Okay, next up, we have Mary Makovic. State your name and address for the record. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you. Mary Makovic, my address is exempt from public record. I want to thank you for bringing up this topic. It's something that as you've gone through the history, we've been coming before you since 2024, even going back all the way to 2006 when it went before the Planning Commission, and the concerns are all the same. Traffic, emergency response, access, ingress and egress from the US 17 and Havendale. And all along, you have been telling us it will go to FDOT, it will require FDOT approval. In fact, I want to play for you a little bit this is from the June 24th meeting.
What these ladies are talking about. Yes, sir, and we've already coordinated with FDOT on this project. They are a participant in our development review committee meetings now, and we've asked them, we've made them aware of this project, and they have indicated to me that they will need, even though their access is through an internal road, they will need an FDOT permit prior to construction. So when they come in for site plan approval, we'll be sharing this with FDOT. So they will need a driver's permit? Yes, sir. And that will identify, based on their trip demands, what kind of improvements they may have to make to US 17 or Havendale. Okay. All right. That's good.
You ladies, did you hear that?
So based on that, I'm concerned because even though it started out as 268 or at that time 100, we were always told that it would go before FDOT, it would go before FDOT. And this is now using that same access road. And now suddenly it's not going before FDOT, you're using their own provided traffic study, which if you've taken a look at it, it's kind of to their advantage, right? They took, traffic counts were conducted in June of 2025, which, forgive me, June of 2025 was when the traffic study was conducted. That was outside of the school year. You have a school just down the street with 500 students. It was also not taking into account the seasonal and winter population that utilized those over 55 condos. They did make a slight adjustment, but it was very much on the conservative side. And in their executive summary, it states, roadway capacity. The study roadway segments currently operate adequately and are projected to continue to do so at the projected build-out. Yet their own study shows that the level of service on State Road 544, which is Havendale, was a level of service of F. The ratings go from A, being free-flowing, to F, which is a breakdown of traffic and where demand exceeds capacity. So I guess I'm confused as to why, if something is already an F, you would allow additional 168 apartments to come in and yet say that it's fine and that there's no adjustment needed. So also, I would like to know if you could get me the variances that they applied to during their development review, because they are not following all of the ordinance 06-121. There's no swimming pool. Some of the items there, they're not following. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Levy, could you speak to that FDOT? I'm curious myself on what that is.
Sure, so.
Procedure is.
Yeah, so they were not required by FDOT to get an access permit. They are a member of our DRC, Development Review Committee, and team. They did submit a traffic analysis indicating their impacts on adjacent roadways. It gets a little complicated, but part of that is because of requirements in Chapter 166 of Florida statutes that have to do with proportionate fair share and what we can require developers to do and to not do with respect to traffic impacts at intersections. And so there is available capacity on US 17, ample capacity, both according to the concurrency spreadsheets and the traffic analysis. Where the bottleneck happens is at the intersection. It's at Havendale and US 17. The rules are different for intersections. You cannot, according to Florida statutes, require a developer to make intersection improvements, pay for intersection improvements on a intersection that is already failing prior to his project coming online. That's paying for somebody else's pass-through traffic and somebody else's problems that somebody else created. You can't do that. And in review of the traffic analysis, the impacts turning left and going up to Havendale Boulevard was less than 1% of the overall traffic going into that intersection. Therefore, there is considered a de minimis impact, and we can't make the developer make those improvements. Therefore, no FDOT access permit was required.
So that would lead me to my next question, because FDOT came in and made that intersection worse not so long ago, single laning a left turn from 17 onto Havendale. So if it's failing, or it was failing prior to this project, and we can't do anything to fix it or have that developer fix it, when does it get fixed? It's not a city road, it's a state road.
It's a state road.
What happens?
It becomes part of a larger state project. The northern section of Lucerne Park is part of that solution. We are trying to provide some solution, some relief to that intersection with Willowbrook Road, as you're aware of, to try to get some less traffic to flow through that intersection, but it would be a state-funded project.
I'll reserve my comment because it's not a good one. Commissioner, no, I'm sorry, we're still in public comment. So no one else spoke to or signed up to speak. However, if you would like to speak, I'll give you the opportunity now to come do so. If you'd like to speak on any other agenda item, just hold off until we get to that particular item. But if there's anything else that you'd like to speak to this particular item, or just in general conversation, now's your opportunity. I've got him on the left here first. So if you'll state your name and address for the record, and you'll have 5 minutes once you do that.
Hi, thank you for having this. My name is Aaron Bosch. I live at 116 Mirror Lane, so on the lake, kind of behind where the existing mall is. I've got no problem with the apartments. Traffic, of course, is an issue. 3 things. One, I'd like to know when the mailers were sent for this particular project, because we never received them at my house, nor did my neighbors on either side of me. We did receive landmarks when they wanted to do the 100 apartments. We also received a couple bars or nightclubs that were going there. We received that, but I never got anything on that, just so you know. I have a question. Are the DEP guidelines for water, for lighting being followed? So DEP has specific guidelines for brightness and number of lights on any body of water in the state of Florida, let alone all across the US. And I didn't see or have heard anything about that, so I was wondering if that was being followed, because they have specific low lighting levels due to the environment of the lakes and the wildlife that's there. My other question is, what entity is required to monitor the 25-foot erosion zone that has been set up around the land with the trees and everything else that's there, to make sure that the residents, the management company running the apartments, or the owner will not modify in any way, shape, or form? Because if it is something that's city and the city's handling, then that would not fall under Fish and Wildlife. So I'd like to know where or who is responsible for that, because that is an issue with the erosion and stuff that happens. We all know hurricanes and everything else. But that's the only questions I have. Thank you.
I saw Mr. Labby jotting all those questions down, so we'll certainly follow back up, and we'll have staff get with you shortly for your best contact information.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
if I may, just for clarification, on the technical items, I will defer to Mr. Labby and our engineering team on that. The question about mailers for this specific project.
Would have been over 20 years ago,
That
right?
would have been in 2006, is when mailers would have gone out for the zoning and land use. There's not a mailer notification process when a property is going to be developed that has already been given its entitlements. It's the same as if you have a single-family vacant lot in your neighborhood that has been vacant. Whenever that zoning was applied, that notification went out, but if 20, 30 years later somebody decides to put a house on it, there's not a notification process for that.
Okay, thank you. We had someone else. Yes, sir. You'll state your name and address. You have 5 minutes.
Good evening. Glenn Newland at 1776 6th Street, Lake Ridge Condominiums. And just 2 things. Great presentation. Really enjoyed that presentation. It was very informative. Thank you. Mentioned something in there that the construction has begun already. So I guess the question is, our discussion here, does it have a purpose?
Education. Education.
And we'll let that float for a while.
Education.
But one thing for certain, I noticed the plan, I couldn't see much on it. Are there any plans for traffic signals anywhere along the entrance?
No.
So there's a couple places, not knowing the exact driveway it's going to be, there's a couple spots where people are going to be making left turns or quick turns. And I live across from a new medical building that's there, and I see some pretty entertaining attempts at turns. So with more people being there, is there any consideration about traffic signaling? We'll let them float up there too. But thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right, anybody else like to speak? Yes, ma'am. State your name and address for the record. You have 5 minutes.
Betty Hoffman, US 17 in Avondale. I thank you for what you have done. And if something builds on where the Floridinos is, or something else. I'm sure that we'll hear about that. But my question, or my comment, it's not a question, is I'd like to know how we're gonna get into our apartments. I have a picture here. Across from our driveway is their driveway, where they're going to be using that driveway. There is a cement abutment. There's 3 car lengths for people to get into our condos and the Salvation Army. And you said it can't be changed, it's FDOT, that's why you're not, but yet your one meeting in 24 said FDOT will be involved, but they're not now on this project. And so you didn't want to make a comment, and I can understand that, because like my comment would be along with yours. But why not get a hold of FDOT and see what us residents, this room full of people, how they're going to get into their home? You don't want to, because it might offend you, but tell us who live here, who you are representing, tell us how we're going to get into our condos. At least I've called FDOT, and they've not even heard from you. So maybe if you talk to FDOT, even though you think your hands are tied, they might give you some suggestions to be able to give to the people that live in that area. Thank you. And thank you. I know we're pains, but
This is the process. So 3 of us are members of the TPO board, and I think I can say with certainty, I know we'll be bringing this up at the next TPO board meeting. That's the Transportation Planning Organization of Polk County. And we'll get a clarification from them as well, and see where this kind of falls in the current workflow. But I can assure you it's not overnight, although it should be. Any other comments from the audience?
Mr. Mayor, I have a quick question. The landmark property, C3 zone, how would Live Local apply to that? Would they be able to, and I'm asking because it sounds, what we have here is a situation where we don't have a lot of standing from a legal standpoint to do much of anything. You heard of state agencies here, and now I'm talking about a state law that has taken away our purview and our decision-making, and it could possibly get worse, and we may not have much at all to do with that. And, you know, I certainly hear your concerns, I share your concerns, and I hope that there is some soft power we can help apply towards some of these decision makers. But the reality is that we really have very little to do as far as making a decision or stopping things or making improvements on FDOT roads. I do have a lot of concerns with the landmark property, but that's not the subject of what's going on with these apartments. But I just wanted to raise that because it is possible that, you know, based on the changes that the legislature continues to make for what they call affordable housing, we may be seeing even more coming down the line. I'm not aware of any right now for that area, but it's very possible there could be even more, which is very concerning. And I hope that you are making your voices heard as well with the folks that are making those decisions, which would be our legislators.
So Commissioner Davis, I heard a psh when that can of worms got opened up just there. Live Local, I think we're on version 3.0 right now. I'm looking to my planning staff. Live Local was an effort by the state legislature to address the affordable housing crisis in Florida by allowing affordable housing development to occur within initially certain zoning districts. That has broadened to now be pretty much every zoning district. I think institutional is exempt from that. But it basically says that if you're going to do something with affordable housing, if it's not allowed within a zoning district, it now is, because it falls within that category of affordable housing. Again, a very development-friendly legislative body is what we have at present time. Eric, Sean, I don't know that we've had a Live Local project come to us in Winter Haven. I can tell you that throughout the state of Florida, as I talk to my colleagues, particularly in coastal communities, these are left and right throughout. Was never able to develop housing along that coastal community, and now I can go do it. And I can't be restricted on height or other issues of consistency with adjacent properties. It has really become a major issue. Now, I don't know where that legislation that's being proposed this year is in the sausage mill. That is the legislature. It does take it's a lengthy process to get bills through there, but I know that there's a number of things that are going forward in Tallahassee that ultimately, I won't speak to what the intent or purpose of the bills are, because I'm not the crafter or the creator of those, but certainly the outcome of those lends itself to a lot more aggressive development across the entire state, in spite of issues with school capacities and transportation and water resources and the like. Fortunately, concurrency in our case, you still have to meet concurrency. If there's not the infrastructure to support it, that's part of the approval process. But Live Local is something that, again, we have not faced head on here in Winter Haven as of yet. But I think, like all communities, that's not an absolute. We won't ever see that.
Okay, wanted to set expectations on one other thing, because it was brought up, the Flordino's building and property. If they build within what the current zoning allows, it will not be public notice. It would not come before us. So if you see a structure going up there, unless they want to build 42 homes, we're not going to get to look at it. So just don't look for anything in the mail on that one. Okay, I didn't see anybody else wishing to make comments at this time, so we will close the public comments portion and move on to ordinance second reading, which is O26-09. City Attorney, by title only, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ordinance number O-26-09, an ordinance of the City of Winter Haven, Florida, amending ordinance number O-25-29 regarding appropriation of funds for defraying expenses of the municipal government of the City of Winter Haven for the fiscal year commencing October 1, 2025, providing for severability and for the administrative correction of scrivener's errors, and providing for an effective date. Thank you.
Thank you. City Manager.
Mayor and Commissioners, this is an ordinance amending the budget for fiscal year 25-26. There have been no changes since first reading. Staff recommends City Commission approve.
Thank you. Commissioners?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Move approval of O-2609, second reading, public hearing.
Thank you. Motion's been made. We'll close the commission meeting, open the public hearing. Anyone wish to speak to this item? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing, reopen the city commission meeting. Any further discussion on this item? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. All right, consent agenda?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Move approval of the consent agenda in its entirety.
Thank you. Motion's been made for consent agenda approval. We'll close the public hearing, close the commission meeting, open the public hearing. Anyone wish to speak to any item on the consent agenda? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing, reopen the city commission meeting. Any further discussion on any item on the consent agenda? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Some resolutions. We have R-26-06. City Attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Resolution R-26-06, a resolution supporting and authorizing the city manager to execute and submit on behalf of the City of Winter Haven a Polk Transportation Planning Organization TPO Transportation Alternatives Program grant application for North Lake Maud pedestrian and sidewalk improvements, and to certify the 5-year schedule of capital improvements of the city's comprehensive plan. Thank you.
Thank you. City Manager.
Mayor and Commissioners, I'm going to ask Mr. Labby to present these next three resolutions, 2606, 07, and 08. They are embodied within one summary report in your agenda packet. We will consider and ask that you only vote on each one independently, but for the benefit of not repeating ourselves, we'll go through all three of them as one report.
Yes, sir. Mayor, Commissioners, the FDOT accepts applications for transportation alternatives, multi-use trails, regional multi-use trail projects. The current application cycle includes funding for these types of projects in fiscal years 27-28 through 2031 and 2032. The city's funding applications will be submitted to Polk Transportation Planning Organization and Florida Department of Transportation. Later this spring, Polk TPO will competitively rank each application against other projects submitted through this process. Following TPO's ranking, the applications will be forwarded to FDOT for final funding determination in the fall. The three projects pertinent to these three resolutions that we are applying for are North Lake Maud area. This is a project that extends approximately 2,000 feet along North Lake Maud Drive between 3rd Street Northeast and 7th Street Northeast. It includes sidewalks. It also includes sidewalks on 3rd Street Northeast, 4th Street Northeast, 5th Street Northeast, and Edwin Street Northeast. It is to include a minimum of one sidewalk between 4 and 6 feet in width on each of these streets, upgrade stormwater systems as needed, and construct the sidewalks. Preliminary project cost estimate is $830,277. The second resolution is with respect to 5th Street Northeast. Again, this is a 1,400-foot stretch along 5th Street between Avenue K Northeast and Avenue O Northeast. It is also to install a sidewalk along each side of the street, upgrade stormwater systems as needed, the planting of some street trees, and conduit for future lighting. The preliminary cost for this project is $997,142, and the final resolution is for 5th Street Southeast, a 27-foot-long corridor along 5th Street Southeast between Avenue G Southeast and Avenue O Southeast. Again, it is for sidewalks, stormwater systems, and enhanced crosswalk improvements at Avenue G Southeast, Avenue K Southeast, and Avenue O Southeast. The preliminary cost for this project is $851,174. Excuse me. There's no immediate financial impact with these requests. It is mostly aligned with quality of life, infrastructure, community safety, and responsible government strategic pillars, and staff does recommend approval of resolutions R2606, R2607, and R2608, authorizing the city manager to take all actions necessary thereto. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Commissioners, so we're going to have three separate votes here. So first up is R2606.
Move approval of resolution R2606.
Thank you. Okay, we'll close the commission meeting, open the public hearing. Anyone wish to speak to this item? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing, reopen the city commission meeting. Any further discussion on this item? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Okay, on R26-07, City Attorney, you still need to read this in for record.
Resolution R-26-07, a resolution supporting and authorizing the city manager to execute and submit on behalf of the city of Winter Haven a Polk Transportation Planning Organization TPO Transportation Alternatives Program grant application for 5th Street Northeast pedestrian and sidewalk improvements, and to certify the 5-year schedule of capital improvements of the city's comprehensive plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioners, what say you on R-26-07?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Move approval of R-2607.
Okay. We'll close the commission meeting, open the public hearing. Anyone wish to speak to this item? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing, reopen the city commission meeting. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Okay, Resolution R-26-08, City Attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Resolution R-26-08, a resolution supporting and authorizing the city manager to execute and submit on behalf of the city of Winter Haven a Polk Transportation Planning Organization, TPO, Transportation Alternatives Program grant application for 5th Street Southeast pedestrian and sidewalk improvements, and to certify the 5-year schedule of capital improvements of the city's comprehensive plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioners?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
motion to approve R 26-08.
Okay. Motion's been heard. We'll close the commission meeting, open the public hearing. Anyone wish to speak to this item? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing, reopen the city commission meeting. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. All right, ordinance first reading. We've got a couple. O-26-07, City Attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ordinance number O-26-07, an ordinance amending Chapter 21 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Winter Haven, Florida by rezoning a parcel from Industrial Light I-1 zoning district to multifamily low-density R-3 zoning district, providing for the administrative correction of scrivener's errors, repealing all ordinances in conflict herewith, and providing an effective date. The general location, 15198 8th Street Southwest. The area covered by this request is 0.48 plus or minus acres. Thank you.
Thank you. City Manager?
So, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners, this is a great recap of the conversation we just had on the land development process. So you'll hear a whole lot of those statements come back forward. So Antonio Erique requests the city rezone a parcel from Industrial Light I-1 zoning district to multifamily residential low-density R3 zoning district. The property contains 0.48 plus or minus acres and is located at 1519 8th Street Southwest, and it is currently vacant. You can see it depicted there by the hashed image on your screen. Primary mixed-use hub future land use designation will remain. Maximum development potential remains unchanged. There's no increase in maximum potential infrastructure demands beyond what is currently allowed. Subject property is surrounded by residential uses to the north, commercial uses to the east and south, and the CSX railroad line to the west. The requested multifamily residential low-density R3 zoning district is consistent with the primary mixed-use hub future land use designation. There's no direct financial impact to the city with this request. The Planning Commission heard this on February 3rd during their regular meeting and voted to recommend approval. There were no members of the public that spoke. Staff recommends City Commission advance ordinance O-26-07 to second reading, at which time we will ask for a favorable vote. Thank you.
Thank you. No vote tonight on that item, but the second reading will be on March 23rd. Any questions or comments from the commission? All right. Seeing none, ordinance O-26-11, City Attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ordinance number O-26-11, an ordinance of the City of Winter Haven, Florida, amending ordinance number O-25-29 regarding appropriation of funds for defraying expenses of the municipal government of the City of Winter Haven for the fiscal year commencing October 1, 2025, providing for severability and for the administrative correction of scrivener's errors, and providing for an effective date. Thank you.
Thank you. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. This has nothing to do with land development, so we'll go a different path. During the preparation of and adoption of the fiscal year 26 budget, projects, contracts, and other expenditures were properly budgeted for implementation in this current fiscal year. However, prior to the close of fiscal year 25, the city had the opportunity to execute encumbered purchase orders for some of the budgeted projects and expenditures with the unspent balances carried forward into the fiscal year 26 budget. As a result, the roll forward of these purchase orders created duplicate appropriations in the current fiscal year 2026 accounts. The requested amendments that are outlined in the attachment that we reviewed at length Wednesday evening will decrease the city's fiscal year 26 budget by $1,889,134. Staff recommends City Commission advance ordinance O-26-11 to second reading, at which time we will ask for favorable consideration.
Thank you. Okay, no vote on this item as well, so second reading will be on the March 23rd meeting. Any comments or questions from the commission? Seeing none, we've got a new business item, the 2026-2027 CDBG allocation funding support and public comment for R.H. Malcolm Park.
Mr. Labby will present this item on behalf of the City Manager's Office.
Sure. So as you may be aware, we are a community partner with respect to our CDBG funds with Polk County. Polk County administers the city's funds and programs. Staff has identified R.H. Malcolm Park as a playground that was last renovated in 2008. The park is listed in the city's capital improvement plan for upgrades in the next few years. Renovations to the park would include a new playground with pour-in-place safety surfacing, new site amenities, picnic area, and upgraded ADA access. These improvements would complement recent redevelopment efforts in the surrounding area. The anticipated fiscal year 26-27 CDBG allocation for Winter Haven is $296,202.74. Staff does recommend that this allocation be assigned to this project. A requirement of the proposed CDBG application is that the City Commission endorse and provide opportunity for public comment with respect to utilization of the CDBG funds towards the R.H. Malcolm Park project. This agenda item would meet those requirements. Staff recommends City Commission open this agenda item for public comment. Following consideration of public comment, endorse the allocation of the 26-27 Community Development Block Grant Funds to support the R.H. Malcolm Park Enhancement Project and authorize the city manager as designee to submit the municipal partner proposal to Polk County and take any further action necessary thereto. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so is it, I know we're gonna do public comment, but we actually vote on this too, right?
Yes, sir.
It's
Yes,
not a
yes,
nod
sir.
of the head, so, okay. All right, Commission?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
move approval of the 2026-27 CDBG allocation funding to support the R.H. Malcolm Park with public comments.
Okay, thank you very much. We will close the, motion's been heard, so we'll close the commission meeting, open the public hearing. Anyone wish to speak on this item? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing, reopen the city commission meeting. Any further discussion on this item?
I'm just happy to see this being done.
And I will make a comment as well. And I'm gonna do it every time anything around this lot comes available or something happens. But there's a great corner lot right around the corner from this park that would make great workforce housing, so. If we can do anything we can to generate some housing there that's affordable for the workforce would be fantastic, specifically for families, and families with children, now that this park will be ready to go, so.
What's the size of it?
What's that?
How large is it?
It's ready to go for 13 units. All right, with that, and no further discussion, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. All right, so we've got liaison reports. We'll start off with Commissioner Mayor Pro Tem Mercer, sorry.
Okay, I did attend the public safety oath of office, and I think we had two things within the past 2 weeks, and the annual public safety awards ceremony. So we're glad to know that so many of our officers and emergency officers and public safety officers and that can be recognized for what they do. So I also attended the Chamber Eggs and Economics. Wasn't as good as our own director did, so the year before. A different spin on that. A different spin on it this time. So it's a little bit more difficult to understand because he was a doctor, had a doctorate in that, so it makes it a little bit more difficult to understand some of the the things. But I really liked your presentation last year. So. Also attended the Patterson Memorial, and again, that was recognizing one of our fallen officers. Did attend the Shamrock, or Champaign and Shamrock, and it was very, very nice to hear the orchestra and all that they did. All of the music that they played. It was really wonderful to know that we have musicians of the very young and the very old, so that are still playing. So, and I attended the Big Brothers Big Sisters event here that was held here, and it's good to know that that's still in existence in a program that helps students or helps adults, young adults, and not so young adults, very young children, and that with support that they need. So, and that's, I think, all that I did.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Davis.
Okay, the last couple of weeks, we've had a few events that really focus on some of our first responders and our heroes. With the groundbreaking of Fire Station 5, the Patterson Memorial Ceremony, and the Public Safety Awards Ceremony. And then, of course, we honored Captain Quirk this evening. And, you know, we've also had a few terrible accidents I've seen in the paper, and some I haven't seen in the paper, but I'm just aware of. And it's just, it's been a real sobering time to think about the people who just, they lay their lives on the line to serve us. And I'm just so appreciative of all they do, and I never want to, you know, lose sight of that. I actually, since I've been elected, when I hear the sirens going off in the distance, it hits a little bit different. You know, I actually will sometimes pause and say a quick prayer for the men and women in uniform, because you just don't know what they're responding to. So also the past couple weeks, well, really the last week, in preparation for tonight's meeting, I've kind of got in pretty deep with land use law and some treatises, and I enjoy the hospitality of a few of our folks, constituents here who spoke, and really appreciate them taking the time to speak with me. And Mr. Lobby, thank you for your presentation. You really kind of brought home a lot of the stuff that I've been pouring into and studying. And you know, the truth of the matter is that you know, it's easy to run for office and say you're going to do things or stop things or you know, make some of the differences. But the reality is that you know, we're kind of caught in the balance between private rights and public you know, power or judicial decision making, and it's very complicated, and I take that role very seriously to try to understand you know, what the proper role is, what we can and cannot do. I even emailed the city attorney about some concerns I had about you know, just how far I can go in receiving comment from folks, and so it's tough. We know that development is the biggest issue everybody thinks about in local elections. We know the concerns. You know, traffic, I think, is always going to need improvement, but I do know that intersection is particularly bad. I've experienced it personally myself, and I know everybody here who lives with it deals with it even worse. So whatever we can do to you know, within our capacity, but also within our relationships with state and other sectors of government, to try to bring it to the forefront of their minds, and whatever we can do to try to make improvements, I think we need to keep focusing on. And with that, I think I'll end.
Thank you. Commissioner Birdsong?
Yes, attended the Chick-fil-A supply event, and it was really nice to see them putting in that particular project that will create, they said, about 150 jobs, which is really great, high-paying jobs at that. It's always a surreal experience laying the wreath on the Patterson Memorial, to know that there was one of us, one of ours, that actually made the ultimate sacrifice in serving this community as a police officer. And to see his mom and his dad and his sister, you know, it just brings it really home. Had a fun event Saturday night with Filling the Lanes. Got a chance to shake a leg a little bit. With Trista Dolliston, our Broadway superstar, was on stage. And so we had it was a very, very, very nice event. It's always nice to go to the public safety events where we are honoring our first responders, and the pictures that followed later were great. I really enjoyed seeing those pictures where I could look at them up close and personal, so that was good. And then always swearing in new first responders, both police and fire. And finally, I attended today the PSC qualifications of prospective contractors for our utilities buildings. And so it went well, and there's going to be another meeting where there are 3 vendors were selected, and they will make presentations to the committee, and then the committee will select one of the 3 to be the contractor. So it's quite an involved process, and there were quite a few businesses. I think there were 8 all total that was interested in that project. And so they selected 3. So, and then finally, I signed my brick at Fire Station 5, and just wondering if I'll see it sometime later on, but I don't know. But I will say this, I raised that question out at Chick-fil-A because we signed a beam. And I told them when I've signed a couple of beams before, and they told us that they wouldn't be visible once the building was constructed, but Chick-fil-A says that there's some kind of way that we'll still be able to see it. I don't know how, but I will be going by to see for myself. And that's pretty much it.
They told you they wouldn't give you any more Chick-fil-A. Commissioner Dollison?
The topping was, for Chick-fil-A was quite impressive. The facility that we were mainly in is really going to be the freezer for the waffle fries. And I tell you, it's a lot of waffle fries. But I will say this, some amazing people we met that day. Just good people. People really care about community, care about, building a team, and what their impact will be in the community. That was really, really encouraging, to say the least. And Commissioner Birdsong, he signed his name, spelled it out. Matter of fact, he printed it out, and he wanted to make sure. I think he also put down commissioner as well, so he didn't do just a signature. He wanted to make sure, so I hope it'll be some way we can see it and be able to see that for years to come. The annual safety awards is always, I have certain affinity for the department because in connecting with Patterson Memorial, and I mentioned at the awards that it's been 29 years ago that Chief Kirkland actually called myself and Father Fred Roos at the time to start, and Danny Moosberger, to start the chaplaincy program for the city of Winter Haven. And so I'm really connected to that in a real way, so it really has a great meaning. When I see the parents and, you know, genuinely thinking back 29 years ago, seeing them when that happened, and it was a really tragic situation for our city during that time. It is said that time heals all wounds, and but we still remember, and it's good to remember and reflect. The annual Voices Music for a Cause, as been mentioned, filling the lane, Dr. Vincent Maurice Miller. He's been doing that about 12 years, really helping young boys just find their way and have focus, and it's just, you know, they were there serving, and just a great cause to support within our community. Glad to see that. And of course, I'm a little biased. I did enjoy the music as well. The also did go by the Chamber Community Fest as well, and well attended, very festive, and a lot of people seem to come out and enjoy a beautiful day as well. So that's pretty much all I have. Again, pray for the you know, those the Leonard families we mentioned. That Pastor Leonard served on the CRA, and as well as many other boards and that he was part of. And today, in fact, is his birthday, his 50th birthday today. And I think some of them have gotten together to just, you know, come together and share with each other. A lot of friends and a lot of people that he knew and supported. He'll be sorely missed, but we'll celebrate his life on Saturday at 12 noon. And to Dr. Threkel, as I mentioned before, you know, she, you know, Ellie was just a wonderful lady to know. One of the first persons I got to know as a commissioner in the city, and just really appreciate her just for what she brought to the city and her contribution to Winter Haven. She'll be remembered always.
Thank you. All right, let's keep it real for a second. The Chick-fil-A was fantastic. The economic impact, the jobs, they're gonna deliver to Chick-fil-A's from here to all the way to South Georgia. The good news is our local Chick-fil-A ain't ever gonna run out of food, so we are good to go. And that,
waffle fries.
I know, I think it's pretty cool. Like if you eat a waffle fry between here and Tallahassee, South Georgia, it came through Winter Haven, so it's good to know. It's got a little extra sugar on it, salt on it, something. Anyways, Champagne and Shamrocks were phenomenal. It got me thinking though, you know, we've got a great outdoor venue right off of Lake Silver. It'd be really cool to have an outdoor symphony out there one night. So I don't know if any thinkers can put that together, but that'd be really cool to do an outdoor symphony in downtown Winter Haven. And I'm also
Used to be in the park.
yeah.
Yeah.
So also discovering as mayor, you've got to go to multiple events during the same night. A lot of times, sometimes there's two, but sometimes there's many. It's 3 or 4. So I attended the first responders dinner, and then hated to leave early. But also the Heart for Winter Haven event was just down the road, so I wanted to go there and show my support for ending childhood homelessness in Winter Haven. And they made some great leaps at that event. It was a great event, and got a lot of great support within the community that night as well. So outside of that, I'll just pretty much attended everything else everybody mentioned. So with that, I'll end it, and we'll go for the city attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Commission. I have nothing this evening. Appreciate it.
Okay. City manager?
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. I want to talk for a few minutes, if I can, about grant and aid. It's that time of year again. Give you a little update on where we stand and ask you to at least begin considering some guidance for your committee and staff alike. So we did 4 mandatory training sessions. Agencies that would apply for grant and aid through the City of Winter Haven's program have to attend one of those, or a representative of those agencies. Those were held February 7th, 11th, 19th, and 23rd. We actually added a session because there was such a demand for them. We had 118 individuals attend those trainings, representing 97 different organizations. For comparison, now how many of those 97 apply, we don't know. As of, well, for 26, last year's system, we had 76 applications that came in. 44 of them were granted funding awards. Our application window opened a week ago today, so March 2nd, we began receiving applications. That will continue until next Friday, this Friday, the 13th. Once that window has closed, our staff will conduct the sufficiency review of all those applications, and that will be done by March 27th. The applicants that have a need for corrections are given until April 10th to make such corrections. And then our Grant and Aid Application Review Committee will get those packets, and they will convene on May 5th, and if necessary, on May 15th, to review in session and deliberate and such. So, I'll tell you, as of today, this morning, we had received 12 applications. I certainly expect that number is going to jump this week, just knowing that they're due by Friday, and not a lot of people jump on those right out the gate. As long as you have an application in, it's not a first-come, first-served type program. What I'd like to ask for is a little guidance, or at least for you to begin contemplating guidance for us in advance of the committee's deliberations. So the big questions are, first and foremost, a funding amount. We increased funding for fiscal year 26. We gave out $347,761 in grant and aid last year. So would like to get a sense of, are we holding the line on that amount this year? Where would you like to be? Certainly, you know, one of the concerns we have long-term is what happens with legislative changes that will impact our ability to fund this program, whether that's through reductions in interfund transfers from the utility, which is still alive and well in Tallahassee, as well as what happens with property tax, and the timing of those hits, we don't know. Certainly property tax would be sometime post election of November 26th, but on any utility transfer changes, that is yet to be seen. So 347,761 was the number last year, so we're looking for some guidance on how to approach this year. Another question is funding for the 6 legacy agencies that we have dealt with for many, many years. Those include the Boys and Girls Club that has been funded at $45,000, Girls Inc. at $20,000, the Learning Resource Center, which is the operator of the Public Education Partnership Tutorial Center on Avenue R. We funded them at $20,000. The Meals on Wheels of Polk County operations, just up the street here, at $20,000. The Neighborhood Service Center on Lake Maud at $20,000, and the Haley Center was the other one, which is now located on US 17, about a block northwest of where we sit. We funded them at $20,000. We've looked at those historically as legacy agencies that have been dependent upon funds from the city and had considered those first in prior years before we consider the other applications that come in. So again, just looking for guidance if we want to continue, if you want to continue in that approach. As I'm sure all of those will apply. They were all, I believe, in attendance at one of the trainings, which they still have to go to. Everybody that applies has to have gone through one of those trainings. Those are really the two big questions that hang out there, so we can give that guidance to that committee. And then from a kind of a consensus of the commission, are there any specific areas of emphasis that you want that committee to take to heart in thinking about who they fund out? As an example, if the issue of food insecurity speaks to you, and you see that as a primary challenge to be tackled, we pass that along to them and say that the commission is particularly interested in food insecurity, or if it's in workforce development, or in affordable housing and housing support, if there's anything that speaks to you. If not, then we will continue to go off of the feedback that came through the GiveWell / United Way study that identified key issues that exist here in Polk County. And I think we all feel confident that those issues certainly have not been solved and are still prevalent. And then the other question that I had, the fourth and final question was, traditionally we have given that committee direction to try and spread that money across as many different nonprofits as possible. What that results in certainly is a lot of people getting a little bit of money, $2,000, $3,000 in grant funds, and that's certainly we're happy to do that, but certainly want to ask if there's a desire for us to continue that approach, or if you would be the other approach would be to try and find those that are having the biggest impact and provide more funding to them, versus having a lot of little ones, a lot of little grants given out to a lot of agencies, have larger valued grants to a much smaller number of agencies. So,
can you refresh our memories of what what our emphasis was last year, and then also, was the legacy funding included in that 347
yes.
or separate? Okay.
Yeah, that comes out right off the bat. And so the focus last year was, in terms of areas of impact, followed suit of the GiveWell study that was done previously, and that really focused in on education, affordable housing and housing support, nutrition, workforce skill development, mental health and health in general were the key parameters within there. And so, and that's been the case for the past, this will be, I think, the third year that we've kind of looked at that. And then your funding allocations, again, you funded out your legacy agencies first, and then it was the direction to try and help as many agencies as possible. And that's how we ended up with 44 awards.
Yeah, for me, that's what I had down, or child hunger and child homelessness. That's always going to be my top two, because those kids don't ask for their situations. That's just me. Yes.
I think as far as the amount, it probably should be the same or less, just the accounts, and spread it, a broad spread. They need to have multiple funding partners. And that being said, because we may not be able to do this at all the following year. So if ad valorem taxes get cut and the utilities gets cut, and they're looking at the 25% off the top, and they're looking at, which would affect the Garden Grove people, you know. I mean, they're going down to, they're not paying any city ad valorem taxes, any taxes. So that's why you usually charge the 25%, because you want to give the residents that are paying taxes to the city a lesser cost than someone who's not paying any taxes at all to the city. But anyway, we need to, you know, kind of look at that, because, you know, we don't know what's coming at us, so we need to do is, you know, have a broad spread, I guess, and,
And I think
because-
we can certainly factor in as we're doing, you know, we're in budget development now. And I'll tell you, I spoke to every one of those groups that came in and shared with them the challenges that all municipalities stand to face based upon legislative, you know, priorities. And I also share with them that regardless of what the committee decides and recommends and what the city commission accepts as a recommendation and what we put into a budget, there's not a check until we get through a second reading of a budget in September. So they all know that, you know, don't go make, you know, hasty plans in anticipation, because things change. And certainly without without knowing where some of the items in the legislature land, you know, it's going to be, could be a short period of time before we know that.
So application is the vetting process?
So they submit their applications, we review those for sufficiency in terms of IRS qualifications, SunBiz, all the things that they have to have.
So these are 501c3 only?
They have to be a 501c, pick your number, right? So it's a nonprofit, it's an IRS designation. Different, I guess, as I understand it, based upon the type of work they're doing, they may have a different numerical designation after that C. They have to be licensed, or licensed to do work in the state of Florida, which we've confirmed through SunBiz. They have to have been in existence and providing services to the Winter Haven community for at least 2 years.
How much duplication is there?
Quite a bit. It depends upon which category or what type of service you're talking about, but I would say in, particularly like in food ministry, be a number of them that come in and do a variety of different food ministry type things. I think in youth enrichment programs, but, you know, the variety comes in, is it sports? Is it arts? You know, so they're maybe targeting the same need, but through different mediums.
So does the committee kind of dig into that a little bit? Is that what they're kind of focused on a little bit, to kind of help sift through that?
Yep.
So I'm going to channel my Mayor Dantzler here for a second. Pretend I have a magic wand. So it's always one of his favorite things. If you had a magic wand, what would you do? And it's going to be bold, but I'm just going to throw it out there. So, and I mean, obviously it's not my decisions and weighs no more than anybody else up here, but if I had a magic wand, I'd take $145,000 and dedicate that to the 6 legacy funding groups. I would retain the $347,000 for the remainder of applications, and I would focus on child hunger and child homelessness.
So what you just said was you would increase.
I would increase the budget by $145,000.
Quite substantial.
If I had the magic wand, that's what I'd do.
Well, since we don't, so we won't.
We can find it. We can
don't
find
have a
it.
magic
I
wand.
promise you we can find it. We got the best CFO in the state right there. We
Yeah.
can find it.
I tell you, what my, position would be is that, we don't know what we're going to be faced with in the next, I'm not gonna say in the next 12 months, because whatever happened in Tallahassee, for it to really get to us, it's gonna take a minute. But the other thing is that I do know this, that in the past, when we have had challenges, what we have done is made the difficult choices with how much money we funded nonprofits. In fact, at one point, we actually, the legacies, we really reduced them. I think we cut them more than 50%. So I think we will do what we need to do, but for going forward, I'll leave the legacies as they are, leave the funding amount as it is, get all of the proposals, and then we'll have another chance to look at all of this and make a determination. But we'll at least let the process play out. We know we can fund what we funded last year. We know that. We know that we are going to be able to fund that. We know that. There's enough money in this year's budget to fund not only this year, but what we would do for next year if we wanted to do it. So that would be my recommendation. And to get to the point, give the committee the instructions and get all the applications in. We may not get 76 applications this time. We may get less. And so we would at least be in position to see what we want to do based on a minimum of what we did last year.
We're not making a decision tonight. This is
No.
just, we're
That's right.
brainstorming, giving you ideas,
Right.
so.
Right. Exactly. We will have plenty of other opportunities to refine, reduce, increase, or whatever.
So the main thing was to get you thinking about it. We'll
Yes.
come back, and I may ask, we'll, in one of the April meetings, ask
Yeah.
for a definitive answer
Yes.
on what that funding is. So that committee is there trying to give out
Yeah,
slices of the pie.
Because by then, you'll know how many agencies and everything else.
Okay, very good.
Any other commissioners' thoughts, or? So somewhere in between what we did last year and what I suggested.
Yeah.
I work for you.
Lean towards the magic wand, though.
Yeah, magic
I
wand is good.
work for the majority of the five. So, the last thing I wanted to share.
CJ.
And she works for me.
I just winked at her. I didn't say anything.
The last thing I wanted to mention was, I had sent communication to you all, so just want to communicate in person that I will be away from the office for a couple of days, spending time with my child as she has a birthday. MJ will cover the agenda review that will take place next Wednesday, and then I depart, I guess in celebration of Irish American Month on my Global Exchange program with ICMA. And so that will include one of the commission meetings, the second meeting in March. So MJ will handle both the agenda review and that meeting. Please take good care of him. I just want to make sure he's still here when I get back, so do not abuse him too heavily. We'll all be grateful for that. That's all I have. Thank you.
All right. Deputy City Manager?
Nothing this evening, sir.
City Clerk?
Nothing this evening.
Deputy City Clerk? Motion to adjourn.